Hey everyone, welcome to Beginnings. My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. And I don't know about you guys. I did not watch the debates last night, but I saw people tweeting about them when I was trying to do work. When I say try to do work, I mean thinking about doing work and then sitting on Twitter forever, letting it fecalify my brain. But I did some math. So Bloomberg, who's just a disgusting human being in every facet, but he has $64 billion. And I was trying to think about the vastness of his wealth. And I did some math. He could give every human being, every child, every adult, everyone, every single person in the United States $192 million each, and he would still have $1 billion left over. He has $64 billion. That's enough to get it's lunacy. Welcome, by the way, to the show. Oh, what else is going on? Not that this is WTF. I don't ever spend more than a minute or two in the beginning here really going into my life, but what else is lunacy? Oh yeah, we're weaning Mabel off her ball. We found out that she loves chasing a ball. We didn't know this before. We rescued her at the end of last August, and we just found out last week she loves chasing a ball. And then we found out she's addicted to chasing a ball. Like, all she wants to do is chase the ball. When the ball is put away in a drawer, she sits there glassy-eyed, panting, waiting for the ball. It's as if she has a filthy stained mattress in the corner of some flop house, and all she does is sit there all day with the ball. Give me that ball. I need that ball. She sold our TV to try to get another ball. So right now we're trying to wean her off that. So between national politics, injecting fracking liquid into my brain, and dealing with my poor, sweet, addicted dog here at home, I'll be honest, audience, I've been having a tough time. But you know what fills me with happiness and joy? Today's guest, and that is actress Sarah Bolger. If you don't know who she is, let me read you her bio right now. Originally from Dublin, Sarah started acting at a young age, and since then has been in many films and television shows. Early in her career, she starred in Jim Sheridan's Academy Award-nominated film In America, and she received a number of Critics Association nominations, as well as an Independent Spirit Award nomination for her role. Other films include The Spiderwick Chronicles, End of Sentence, and the upcoming A Good Woman is Hard to Find. On television, Sarah's been in a number of great shows, including The Tudors, Into the Badlands, Agent Carter, Counterpart, which was one of my favorite shows the last couple years. If you have not seen Counterpart, it was sadly only 2 seasons on Starz. I would implore you to check it out. Just a wonderful premise. Great acting from everyone. It's wonderful. It's up there with the best shows of the last couple years. And currently, she stars in FX's Sons of Anarchy spinoff, Mayans MC. And let me tell you, Sarah is a joy. She is completely and utterly charismatic. At the same time, she's a real human being. I did not catch a whiff of sociopath at all. If she is, she hides it extremely well. But my guess is not that she is a genuine human, a wonderful actor, and I think we have a very interesting conversation. By the way, if this is your first time listening to Beginnings, thank you for checking out the show. I would ask you also, if you like what you hear, why not check out some other episodes? You can find them all on Spotify. If you want to download them, you can get them at beginnings.libsyn.com. all the MP3s going back. The show's been going over 10 years. What I like to do here in the beginning, though, is suggest a couple episodes you might like. If you like the guest that's on this episode, Sarah is an actress. What about other actors and actresses that have been on the show? Why Griffin Newman from The Tick, Halle Pfeiffer, Adam Pally, Andy Daly, Matt Walsh from Veep, Abby and Alana, Aisha Tyler, Susan Hayward, Brian Husky, and just an absolute ton of other people, writers, comedians, musicians, artists. So if you like what you hear and you want to subscribe to the show, you can do that on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Google Play, and a ton of other places. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Andy Beckerman. And great episodes coming up. I just talked to Dennis Kalachi. He is the founder of Shrimper Records, one of the most influential indie labels around. Putting out albums like the Mountain Goats early on. Super interesting dude. So look for that in the future. But for now, without any further ado, let's talk to Sarah. But just like the idea, like being embarrassed if your child cries, the same kind of is analogous to the same kind of embarrassment if your dog barks. We were walking out late at night 2 nights ago, and a woman just kind of like walked across the street in a dark area and kind of like surprised both of us. And Mabel started barking at her, and I went, "Oh, the tone of my voice, Mabel." And then I go, "I am so sorry." It was genuinely embarrassing. You
went like 30s?
Yeah.
30s like a news presenter? Mabel.
Yeah, I definitely, yes, I was very, I could not, this is how early it is for me. Bringing Up Baby. There we go.
Bringing Up Baby.
There's my 1930s.
That's what you were.
Screwball comedy reference.
Love that movie.
So, okay, I have there's two main things I'm curious about when I thought about talking to you. One, I'm assuming the structures in Ireland and the UK to do this for a living, to become an actor or a writer or something in TV and film are a lot I watch a lot of Irish and British television, so... I kind of know about these things, but here in America, it's very dynastic. Right. If you are not rich and or connected or the child of someone well-known. Yeah. I think that's one of the, moving out here, I learned that's one of the main dynamics. So I'm curious kind of about that path. I have some thoughts on it, but...
do you want to give me your thoughts, and then I'll be able to tell you if you're on the money?
We'll do that. We'll do that second. But also, I was like, you grew up. You're born in the early '90s, so you kind of grew up. I don't know if you even remember, like the tail end of the Troubles. So,
right.
I've talked to some people before about your age from Northern Ireland, and they're like, "Yeah, it's kind of just a thing I learned in school." So
yeah, that is true, to be honest. Like, you're right. I was born 91, so that I was just not alert, media savvy to sort of adhere or to acknowledge the Troubles as they were. So that was something that fortunately I didn't touch my life. I also grew up in Dublin, so I was like a wee ways from the border.
Yeah, but because I thought about it, I was reading. It's not like I didn't know anything. It's not like I'm that kind of American, but history kind of falls out of your head unless it's like put in front of your face. And I was reading again last night. I was just like, oh shit. In our lifetimes, I yelled at my wife, not yelled at her, but she was in another room. just so we're clear, she was in another room. So I yelled across the apartment, and I was just like, in our lifetime, in the Western world, there was like crazy kinds of fighting going on in front of us. But I don't. Did you feel like the remnants of it? Because the thing I'm curious about is how did it shape your life growing up at all? Like again, you're growing up kind of in the remnants, the after effects of it. You're like still a child when the Good Friday Agreement is enacted. So
it is true, and it's such an interesting question because it just didn't affect my life in really any way, shape, or form. My parents, for example, I would gather that it changed their life drastically. Especially how to, I think a lot of families travel around Ireland for holidays. That's like one of the main things you do. You sort of pack up the kids in a van and you ship them all around the country, and that's your summer vacation. And I'm sure there was a time where my folks as children or, as sort of younger adults weren't able to do that, weren't able to move around the country so freely.
Yeah, I thought about it like this. Maybe this is the analogy, is that Watergate, I was born in the 80s, and Watergate was already done with like well over a decade.
Of course.
And I only learned about it, or like even Reagan. Reagan was in my youth. And in the same way that like...
more as a figure, right? Just a name.
Yeah.
Not a presence in your life as such.
And you don't realize how destructive these things were to your society until you're an adult.
Especially now, today. It's so funny how the sort of Watergate has been sort of regurgitated as a topic.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how much I'm learning about it now versus me as a child. But, in terms of Irish schooling, American history and Watergate, not that we didn't touch on it, but there's obviously so much more to learn than like just that specific scandal.
Yeah. I mean... You had Thatcher. So you had your own.
We did. And also, like in Ireland, it's crazy. We learned so much about variable countries and their history. Whereas I guess in school in America, do you find you study predominantly American history? Like in that topic?
I'm pausing because I'm like, I went to a fine school. Nothing spectacular. It was okay. But it was like, it's Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's just kind of like it's, most of the state's kind of like Republican-ish. Right. So that's like what you kind of learn in those areas. You just basically, you're almost taught from the beginning that like, this is the only history that's really important. There's a couple teachers that like you, will, say like a classical education is important. So Roman and Greek history. Right. And then that gets twisted in America, well, in the Western world, into kind of white nationalist shit. But
right.
You like, even when your teachers aren't like rah patriotic, like none of mine were, there's still this kind of cultural air of superiority that's in everything you do here. So I don't know, which is weird to me because I'm like, I was thinking about specifically Dublin. I'm like, literally most of the of Western literature of the 20th century is like Dublin.
Joyce Yates.
Yeah. Joyce Yates, Oscar Wilde.
Even Bram Stoker is an Irish.
Bram Stoker, Beckett.
Of course.
So, I mean, I don't know where, outside of New York, I don't know where in America anyone has any kind of superiority over any other country at all. So yeah, I don't know. That was a long kind of twisty way of saying I had a mediocre education. I'm lucky that my parents were very well educated and taught me more stuff at home.
I mean, don't you think sometimes that's where you glean more information sort of from the home than school? Like, especially values in terms of like what, if you grow up with like in a household I did, my parents were always strive to sort of to give you information to sort of to make you a inquisitive person. And I really think that helped me in life. I
mean, what your father was a butcher, right?
My dad's he's a butcher.
Is a butcher. What's your lineage like? How far back? It's interesting when I ask someone from Europe or from a country from somewhere that has like thousands of years of history. It is a much different question than I'm like when someone moved from Albany to New York
so
City.
true.
It's a lot different.
Yeah. I mean, I've never done the Ancestry.com or the 23andMe, which I'm sure is sort of the next step of what people would bring up in this specific question. And I haven't done it because I'm terrified they're going to sell everyone's information in the future. So.
Yes. Yes.
Like
why we don't do it. Yeah.
I read that what Spotify and 23andMe are linked up to tell you what DNA or what music your DNA likes.
That is...
It's ridiculous.
It's also like, that's some really kind of pseudoscientific shit too.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause that is not...
For
there's
sure.
no scientific
there's no logic
basis
to that whatsoever.
that your DNA predicts anything culturally about you.
But like, I know that in terms of like lineage and ancestors, my mother's grandfather, no, my grandmother's grandfather on my mother's side, like he worked on the Titanic, and again, so that would be sort of Northern Ireland. That's where I sort of was originally docked. So as far as I know, it's like Irish, thick Irish. But I'll have to go check sometime.
For some reason, outside of like, I mean, Walmart, large supermarkets, large things have destroyed any kind of normal jobs that people had here.
Okay.
Right. The idea of someone being a butcher was
Right.
he a butcher? Like he had his own shop?
Yeah,
Or he has his own shop?
His father owned a supermarket type thing, and my father ran the butchering division. Mm-hmm. That sounds very official. It really wasn't. It's like the butcher corner of the shop, and then he himself like started his own store really, really young.
Because like the idea of like, hi, I'm a butcher. Like this is what I am.
It's such an
It
old-fashioned
feels-
trade. Yeah, but do you know how handy it comes in my life? Like
Yeah.
the fact that my father like would have the like fish. Are you a vegetarian or a
I am.
Oh, good. Well, I won't go too deep into the meat of it all.
I'm not offended by
I know,
someone
but still,
else eating meat.
it's just respectful. But he just helped. Like he taught us at a really early age how to myself and my sister can cook whatever we want.
Yeah.
My mom is a fantastic baker and pastry chef, and so it's just we had the most culinary wonderful home.
I mean, please actually do go into it because I'm curious about the actual occupation of it. I'm curious. Here's more so the actual day-to-day life, and also how did that influence you as a child? How
We weren't squeamish, that's for sure.
that I mean that is the thing. I'm squeamish about like if I cook.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little better about it, but definitely if I have like flour on my hands, I gotta wash my hands.
Flour?
Yeah,
Flour.
anything. Yeah,
Sweet
anything.
Jesus Christ.
So like,
we're dealing with the innards of animals, and you're saying flour.
if I have any kind of like a little oil on my hands, I'm like, gotta wash my hands quickly. So that's
I think also like in Ireland, it's just a little bit more like people are so what's the word? It's not like not overly hygienic, but what's it called when you are someone who is always afraid of getting germs, like a hypochondriac?
yeah,
Or
germophobic.
germaphobe, maybe. Yeah, I never knew anyone like that in Ireland. I never because we sort of like grew up in the butcher shop, and it's like there's animals everywhere.
So not squeamish.
Not screaming.
Animals everywhere. Even like even with the dog, I was never.
You do not eat the dogs, though.
No, I
I just want to clarify real quick.
Yeah, okay. I did not think this was like a medieval. You grew up in a medieval town.
I didn't.
Like,
we weren't drinking meat and
Yeah.
like slaughtering the Shih Tzu.
There was no plague, and you like were forced to eat our pets.
No, not in 91.
Yeah. No, like scratching the dog. I like feel very like, I got to wash my hands after
Right,
that.
right.
And so I don't think I'm germaphobic, but I think I'm like very aware.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
like anything foreign.
Right.
On my hands.
Yeah.
Even microbially on my hands.
Right.
And
Right, I get that, though.
So in my imagination is what we're saying.
I understand. No, but it's not imagination, is it? Like that is a true thing. When myself and my sister hardly ever get sick, and maybe this is pseudoscience. Maybe this is a farce, and this is like a placebo effect in my brain. but we don't get sick, and yet we were constantly on the floor with the dogs as kids, like constantly. The farm of dogs, and maybe that has something to do with it.
So you grew up. You're not squeamish.
No.
You are. How old are you when you? Are you okay? Here's the first question. Are you helping around the shop?
Oh yeah. So myself and my sister, as soon as we could learn how to drive, so I was 17. That was our job, was predominantly to do deliveries. So like my dad does these Christmas hampers where he puts together, whatever people wish for on their Christmas day. So turkey, ham, etc., etc. Kind of similar to, I guess, what a Thanksgiving meal would be. Mm-hmm. And we do a lot of that. He didn't really allow us do the sort of the chopping and dicing of it all, because obviously we're children and people want professional. And my father wasn't into child labor at the time either, so I thought that was pretty great. It is interesting though, because my father has cut off his left digit so many times.
No.
Yes.
No. Oh my God.
I think he's chopped off his left thumb like 3 times in my lifetime.
Wait, sorry. Okay, if I can ask now.
He's going to be so delighted.
Someone
telling everyone
chops off their thumb.
Yeah.
How it gets reattached?
It does. If you get it fast enough, you can reattach it. I guess there has to be something to do with nerves and tendons, but essentially where he cut it, where he like disarticulated the bone, it was fine.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's like in a movie when someone gets kicked in the groin. It's it's that same bodily feeling. I'm like grabbing my thumb right now. It is so again, this kind of like there. I grew up in my head, and I wonder if this is here's something maybe.
Yeah.
This is a stretch. I just want to preface this with a long statement saying this is such a stretch.
Give me.
But there is something, I think, growing up in a kind of visceral household, and then becoming an actor, which is also, I think, a very visceral occupation.
Sure.
I think I don't ever make linear one-to-one connections on this show.
Right.
I think those are mostly, unless there is
like
something. Yeah. I also think it's just wrong. I just don't think people work like
as
that.
simple as, yeah.
But I think there are certain kinds of things that like you build a certain foundation in your childhood, and then you kind of like emerge out of that foundation in some way.
Right.
I wonder, I grew up living in my head, living in my imagination, not living in a visceral world.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I became a writer more so than anything else. Even though, look, we're all multi-hyphenates out here. Am I right? But
your facial expression was so beautiful as you said that.
But I wonder how much like this idea of like you're comfortable with the visceral nature of existence, and so
that's sort of like folded into acting.
Yeah, there's something about that where like if like the little bits. I mean, I mostly comedic acting come up through doing improv and sketch and stuff like that. But the little bit that I can do well is I recognize like that's the part of me that. That you're just in the moment, you're just doing that thing, and you're comfortable with I'm not comfortable with my body, so it's not. So that's probably why I'm not that great at it. But I think there might be something. I don't know. I'm throwing it to you.
Well, I want to know what linkage you're referencing in what you heard in terms of the butcher shop that you sort of linked to the.
Oh, just the idea of like being around this kind of. Again, like I said, this is a stretch. You're seeing literally how the sausage is made, right?
Right.
You're literally seeing the life of one animal ended so that other animals can continue their lives. In a way, and I don't just mean that, but I mean like you see the process. You are there front and center for the process. Your father cuts off his fingers and you see it reattached in a way that all that stuff was very hidden from me. Not only the food process, we went to a supermarket, it was all very hidden. You maybe saw the person slice some deli meat. And that was maybe the closest.
That was the most outrageous.
Yeah, but like especially like physical ailments, my parents hid from me. They like when my mom, she had ovarian cancer, I think.
I'm sorry.
In she's a survivor. She has
Lovely, thank
had
God.
ovarian cancer. She survived. She had breast cancer twice and survived. She's
Superwoman.
Yeah. My parents hid that from me. They,
Gotcha.
I just knew my mom was in the hospital. I didn't really know much about it. They were
Right.
very secretive about these kinds of things. So like just the processes of life were hidden. In fact, I'm so frightened of death to the point where, because I was not exposed directly to these things.
You're right. Okay, so I mean, on that train of thought, and forgive me because it's not something I've actually necessarily linked myself, but what I will say, there was a rawness to my childhood that I probably have linked to sort of the current job I have. There was my family are like really blunt, truthful people who worked so hard. They still, by the way, work so hard. But something you just said that I actually thought was kind of interesting. What I did experience in the butcher shop was the interaction with people and salesmanship, and that is something I have used more in my life than anything, which is my father's innate ability to speak to anyone ever. And there is something about walking into an audition room that is meeting a stranger and selling yourself.
Yeah.
And not just selling yourself as the character, but selling you. You're a person that they want to work with. You're dependable. You're honest. You're excitable. You are someone who people will want on set every day. And there was something about watching my father and his salesmanship that I kept. Still maybe used to this day.
If I can push us a little further too, there's something also about like your father owning a business. I didn't until I moved out here. Mm-hmm. I was very naive. Mm-hmm. Even though I've been doing this kind of since 2013. Mm-hmm. I'm wagging my finger for some reason. I don't know why.
Well, I thought we were counting years.
I was very
14, 15, 16.
I don't know why I was so aware of that. I felt like I was like lecturing you in some
me?
way. Yeah. But I think until maybe earlier this year, I don't think I really understood that it's the business part of all of this and how important that is. And I was very naive about that. Again, my father was I don't even know. He was the vice president of sales at some computer company in the 80s. Okay. I understood nothing of what that meant except like sometimes when I went to his office, there was like there was old printer paper, like dot matrix printer paper where you could tear the sides off. Yeah. And that was the only... That's
the perforated little... two edges.
All I literally know about is business. And so it's been a very kind of eye-opening experience on like learning all this stuff. And I wonder if that gave you some kind of... The salesmanship and even just understanding business at its level of what it is to sell anything, including yourself. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, like... I think you'd be naive if you went into acting and didn't know that it was a business and that people at the end of the day have to make money. Mm-hmm. However, and here's the caveat, I don't believe that one should enter it wanting to make money.
Right.
Because I think that it is so artistically driven and can be so fruitful for so many other corners of your life that I think if you go into it seeking fortune... I mean, I actually don't think... I think you'll be so blinded by the chasing of like financial security that you'll miss out on the opportunities that are sometimes you do for free just because you love it.
Yeah.
And it should always be because you love it.
I'm really trying to recapture that because it's been kind of like a real dialectic. Like I was all super naive and then I move out here and I'm like, oh, it's business. I got to sell things. So I then rocket to the other end of it. And now I'm like trying to get back to some kind of comfortable medium position where I'm writing stuff that I think is good that you could also maybe sell, but that I actually am invested in and not just because like an agent or manager said you should write something.
Everyone has to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing is like, and I wonder if this is the same because I come from a background that has nothing to do with any of this, and I wonder if it's similar for you, where it was a passion and then it became a career, and in moving from in that kind of like whatever the jump is, the gap between those things, something got lost, and I'm trying to combine the two again.
Yeah. I think for me, I started at the age of 6. So it was neither a job nor a passion. It was this thing I fell into that I got to do on weekends. It was my playtime. It was my, it's the time where I would have been hanging out with friends. Instead, I wasn't. I was on a film set.
Huh.
So hobby, I guess, super early on. And remember, I was also in Ireland. And at that point, no one thinks, oh, this 6-year-old found her career. Actually, no one thinks that anywhere, I would imagine. But it was one of those things that I've done an acting job every year of my life since I was just 6 years old.
I mean, what is the process of you start at 6 years old? Like, you can't make decisions. I mean,
No, I could not.
I can barely make decisions now.
Amen.
But how do you fall into it?
It so happened that the first job sort of came around as a fluke. Like I looked like the actress. I was sort of the lead of the movie, the woman playing the mother role, as it were. And the sort of the school I was in had like a small drama department, and filming was in Ireland, and they were looking for someone local. And I mean, that was probably based more on looks than ability, because I don't know if I had any ability then.
Sure.
I was very much playing myself, probably up until the age of about 10. And then I did a film called In America, which was a Jim Sheridan movie. And I was playing Jim Sheridan. I was playing the director.
Right.
It was his life story, and he had changed it as such that a couple of the characters were him and his children sort of merged. And it wasn't until like that moment that I was like, oh wow, I'm doing something that is not even close to Sarah Bolger. I'm doing something that's completely different. And it was in that learning that I realized it was a passion. I mean, we're still talking about a 10-year-old, so
right. But
it was a thing I'd go home and want to like work on and study and get better at.
I'm sorry. I'm in my head now trying to remember what I was like at 10, and I'm like, ugh.
That is what everyone says to me. They're like, "What was I doing at 10?"
Not what was I doing, but what was I like? Because I don't even think I was aware. I came at all this stuff late. I went to grad school. Most of my life was me trying to find a compromise between what my parents wanted for me,
sure,
and what I wanted to do, and I wasn't even able to articulate what I really wanted to do.
I think that's I think that's super normal.
Is it? I'm very hard on myself sometimes, maybe because I was like, I wish I would have realized these things earlier, or had the guts, maybe the ability to like tell my parents, hey, I appreciate you. I love you. Mm-hmm. I don't want to follow in the steps of all your friends' children and be a lawyer and or doctor.
Sure.
But I wasn't able to do that. I do think it's interesting, when I talk to people on this show who find the existential things that fulfill them in some way at an early age, it fascinates me because I was not just naive, but just like kind of like, ugh, if you can turn that sound into an emotion,
and then
just like just like off in the stratosphere, really, just like kind of not cognizant of any kind of existential desires or able to articulate them in any real way. You said your parents were very blunt. Mm-hmm. So were you able to, from an early age, and obviously if you're acting, if you are a good actor at the age of 10, you you have to in some way be able to articulate your emotions or understand your emotions.
Sure.
Because I wasn't. That's
right.
You're looking, I said that, and you're like looking at me. You're like, all right, what's the question? And you're like, yeah.
I heard that my parents were blunt, and then you heard that, and I was like,
because a blunt. Because
the linkage.
To me, the idea of being blunt is being able to say the thing you want, as opposed to tiptoeing around things because you want to avoid conflict. So you don't say the thing you really want because you're trying to avoid conflict.
don't we all do that? I'm sure I still do that to this day. Like kindnesses for the sake of for lack of conflict. I'm sure. I think as a child, though, I guess what the difference is potentially is that they saw I was doing this thing that like my mother always said that I was a different child on set. I was just like, I would sit right by the cameras. I would be paying attention. Whereas at home, I'd like be off in a daydream. I wouldn't be paying attention to her. I wouldn't be paying attention to anything. So I was just like alert on set. And it is still something that I hold on to this day. Like I never go back to my trailer ever on, other than to just sort of change to the next costume. Like I love being on set. It's the strangest thing. It's like a real life. And I'm not saying this for like dramatics. I'm saying this in truth because it's just been a home for me since a very young age. It is literally a home away from home because sets are ubiquitous. Like no matter where you are, you can be in Bulgaria, you can be in Australia, you can be in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Sets are the same. It's like the same energy. It's the same type of people. It's that same feeling of accomplishment and struggle and all that, all those things.
This is a very weird metaphor, but I think about it the way you just said it. It seems to me like temple. Like I'm Jewish, so
sure.
any temple you go to is going to there's some dimension of it that feels kind of like home.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not very religious.
Yeah.
When I go to one, I'm like, oh, this is kind of the thing that I grew up in, and I wonder if there's some kind of it's analogical in that sense for you.
I think that's a fair analogy. I think that there is, I've been in more, obviously, I'm Catholic, so more Christian churches, but like there is that sense of you go in and it's like that same smell. It's that same look. It's the same readings. And on film sets, there is a real sense of security. Like I can walk on a set and just know how to behave, know what it is. And people can change, attitudes can change. Obviously, there's lots of things that can happen with any new sort of lot of people. But in truth, it's like the same feeling of accomplishment at the end of the day.
Actually, something you said made me think about this. The idea, my old writing partner and performing partner loved performing because he knew what the rules were he knew how to act on stage. Mm-hmm. He knew what was expected of him in a way that actual life is extremely messy and all gray areas. And you never know if you're doing the right thing or not. I wonder if there's some measure of that for you. The way you said, like, oh yeah, I know how it feels. I go on set. I know what's expected of me. And I know how to get. For me, one of the most difficult things in moving to this as a job has been I grew up being praised for being the smart kid, and no one gives a shit how smart you are out here. It just doesn't.
I'm not getting true. Actually, I actually feel people. In LA, I actually think there's a huge level of smarts in the arts. Wow, that's a weird rhyme. Because I think to be able to survive it, I think you end up having to be smarter than most.
Maybe cunning.
Those are different.
But I don't get the same satisfaction. It's not the same pat on the head. I always call it like a pat on the head. Like I got a pat on the head, a gold star, whatever version you want to use.
Right.
It's not the same thing anymore. And that's been a very difficult transition. I wonder if for you growing up doing it, it's the same, from the age of 6 on, you've had the same, in my head, it's like a Skinner box or like Pavlov or some kind of like conditioning where you're like, I did something good. Here's my pellet or whatever. I know what it is.
Are you talking like that sort of like instant gratification type of thing? Like
you know what it is to in your youth. It was set up in your brain. How to be praised.
Right. So do this Pavlovian effect.
Yes.
Receive that.
Yes.
I will say that except with acting, you go on set and you know exactly what you're doing. And then you potentially have a director be like, no, I didn't like that. So then all the things that you had in your brain, you're like, oh crap, I have to change up now everything that I thought was true about this moment or this character or this scene. So I think what is lovely about acting is you can expect A and B, C, D, E, F happen. So it keeps you on your toes for sure.
But I think there's something interesting though about starting at the age of 6.
Yeah.
In a way that other people maybe who are like, I did high school theater, and then maybe 10 years later they're on a set or something like that. You were able to, yes, okay, so A doesn't work. The director says try something else.
Yeah.
You're not panicking in your brain like I don't know what to do. You're
not anymore. No,
because you got an earlier start. This is the thing that always interests me about people who had an early start. I don't know if you know Paul F. Tompkins, who's a stand-up and a actor and comedian. But he started stand-up at like the age of 16 or 17, something like that. And that stuff, I'm always very jealous of that because he got such a head start on a lot of other people, but also like again because I took me until like my late 20s.
Yeah.
To figure out what I wanted to do.
Right.
I'm trying to say I'm jealous.
No, I mean, look, experientially, yeah, it really helps. It sets you up in a unique way to be able to survive it. I would say though that but you know what? Like you can only ever play an age of 5 years around your own age. So all you do is just miss out on those characters. And you, as an actor coming into it at any age, you've had a life outside of the business. And I think that what does happen is your life becomes the business.
Right.
So I missed out maybe on lots and lots of life.
Maybe, but I also think like you come from a working class background.
Yeah.
So I think you have something that a lot of other people, and this is the thing when we first started talking, this is what I was curious about. I wonder how much different are the structures in the UK, in Ireland, that allow you to become an actor for a living.
I mean, there are no real, remember, England and Ireland are very different in terms of, there's huge amounts of dramatic schools and colleges that come out of England, like amazing ones. RADA, I think, is in London. No, it definitely is in London. I don't even know why I questioned that. It is. And there is none of those. I mean, some of the colleges have dramatic divisions or courses, but as for like schools dedicated to the fine arts, that is non-existent in Ireland. So for people to have a child who's an actor, it's sort of like well, what is she really going to do? That's sort of
right.
But what is amazing is the amount of talent that's come out of Ireland in the arts. We've so many actors, so many directors. It's actually, and musicians. For a town that it's sort of unlikely that you rise to the top in terms of world stardom. We have so many.
But that's what I mean. Part of it I was thinking was specifically Dublin, growing up there, where it's. I wonder how much of your daily life is. Do you feel it? Again, this is so like kind of like new agey. I don't know how to even actually articulate it in a real way. But like you have not only just the history, but just like the recent history. I know Brendan Gleeson or Gabriel Byrne, like incredible actors come from
incredible
Dublin.
Actors. Yeah.
Is there any bit of that's like maybe not in the air, but like culturally you can feel as you're growing up to know that like, oh, this is actually a possibility. And this is like part of my cultural DNA here.
What I will say is Irish people are storytellers. Like it is actually in our DNA. There is not a place you can go to in Ireland where you can't sit around a table and have a story told to you. And we're not talking like fables or like lores. We're talking like just like life stories. People want to share. People want to communicate. Like, and it is a very communicative and willing to share your life type of place. So I would say Irish people, by nature, are not shy in sharing their loves, their flaws, it's very vocally open.
So you grew up kind of in that milieu. I really couldn't think of a better context.
Yeah.
I really hate using the word milieu.
Why? It's such a good word.
I know. It feels so academic. Like I'm like I'm wagging my finger at you again.
I try to pick up a word a day. Like I try to read the Economist and like pick up a word I do not know every day and try to use it. And I think it's a good one.
All right. I won't. I don't know why I'm embarrassed to use milieu. It feels like I'm putting on airs in some way.
I said pellucid the other day, and people are like, "What?" I was like, "Transparent." Like, yeah, I sound like an asshole.
No, I like pellucid. But my brain has been. I went to grad school, and so my brain has been changed. I don't know how to undo whatever happened to my synapses that changed the way I think there. So it's difficult. But so you grew up in this milieu. You grew up from the age of 6 being on set. Mm-hmm. So I guess, is there some kind of fait accompli to this then? Is there some kind of, I guess was there ever in your brain any kind of like, a desire to do something else? Or was it just like, this kind of all for me and this is all I ever wanted?
It was a mix of being a teenager and being well within my right to want to do a plethora of other jobs. And I never had that. I never, ever craved anything other than if I had a meeting, I'd go get that book. I'd go read everything that director had done before. I'd go research that, and I'd go like study an accent. Remember, I've had to only ever do accents in my life. So I was genuinely the kid who would sit watching Friends and mimicking like an American accent. For whatever reason, even though I didn't know I was doing it consciously, subconsciously, I was setting myself up to act. And I didn't know it. There was no one telling me to do it. There was no one, by the way, who knew, because there is no real route. My mother is a wonderful person, and she was a banker early on, and then was the most wonderful mother. My dad's a butcher. Like, none of us are in the industry to give you sort of a understanding of how to succeed. But I never ever was seeking like, oh God, I'd just love to be a scientist. Like if I was just reading these science books and, oh damn it, I have to read the script now. Like there was never that moment.
I mean, do you remember, I don't ever think there's like a moment when I sometimes ask this question. So I don't think there's a moment for this, but like, do you remember when it kind of dawned on you that this was now an existential choice and not just something you had been doing since you were a child? Yeah, I was like 13 or 14. It was just before I filmed The Tudors. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, should I like, I'm 13. I can hang out with friends now during the summer. I can do things that, I want free time potentially. And I did it. I did that. And I was like, I'm just not going to audition and I'm just going to do normal teenage stuff. And I genuinely missed acting. Like to the point where it was silly. Like I was just... Yeah. So it was like just before The Tudors, and at The Tudors, it was a moment where I had to decide sort of like that would interrupt school. That did take me away from actual class, and I had to get a tutor on set and all that business. So it was like that moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this for 3 years, and I'm going to not keep these friends because of it. I can't join sports clubs because I will not be a person who will show up. I'm not dependable. Yeah, I get that. There's like a weird void inside you when you're not doing the thing 100%. That is that's existentially fulfilling. And it's still the same today, by the way. Yeah. No, I physically, if I'm not like working on a thing that even right, like I say this constantly, but the worst writing job is a billion times better than the best day job I've ever had in my life. Yeah, sure. So even if it's just like, I don't know, I worked on Cedric's Barber Battle once, which was Cedric the Entertainer had a reality show. Amazing. Where barbers in different cities competed against each other. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. Competed against each other to cut hair in interesting ways. That was better that was just sitting in a room and just writing dumb jokes.
Yeah.
Fulfilling in a way that I don't know. I mean, this is dumb, but like making photocopies for my boss.
Right.
Obviously, that's not going to be fulfilling for most people.
Right.
But yeah, no. What I'm trying to say is, I get what you're saying. Like, there's this void otherwise, and you're trying to like, oh, why do I feel like I physically feel weird? I don't know if you do. If I'm not doing the thing I want to be doing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if like sensorially I'm having like a reaction, but I just know there is a missing, a real missing.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, I like the way you phrase that. A missing, just like The other thing I'm thinking of too is because you come from a working class background, and this is a, I'm guessing, I don't know. You own a butcher shop. I guess it's a fairly. It goes to middle class.
You know what? We never wanted for anything, so I don't. In terms of like caste system, I don't know where we landed on the scale, but I know that my family were super good to myself and my sister, and we sort of didn't want for anything.
Yeah. I mean, does that give you a kind of like grounding? That I've noticed that there are people out here that are just off in the clouds.
My parents would never. It's actually one of the best things they ever did for me. After every job, no matter where it filmed, and I've fortunately been with my mum and my sister when they traveled with me for filming all over the world, she would instantly bring me back to Dublin. Next day I'd be back in school. Like, there would be no, maybe we'll go to LA and like see what happens, and we'll just take you out of school for a year and we'll just live there. I mean, first of all, my mother had a life in Dublin that she obviously wanted to keep, and as quite rightly she should have. But what it did was it plummeted me back to normality within a second. You went from, top of the call sheet to being in class and not having your homework in on time.
From top of the call sheet to third on the attendance.
18th.
Really?
Oh my God, I was never
Bolger?
in school. Never in school.
But you're third in alphabetical order, probably somewhere around there, right?
I was what? Oh, in the call sheet, like with Bolger?
Yeah, there's like probably like 1A, another
funny.
A BA maybe somewhere.
There was probably two before me, like Brennan's and maybe an A somewhere.
Yeah, see. I figured it out in my head. So you never had the chance to kind of go off into the stratosphere
of
just like
insanity.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of detached people around us in this town.
Yeah, I think that I was. Although I will say, my mother always thinks that I'm somewhere else. She as soon as I come home and I have a conversation, and then there's like an email from my agents, and I go look at that immediately, and she's like, I haven't changed since I was like 13. I asked for a BlackBerry for my 13th birthday. I'm not even kidding. I had so many BlackBerries because I was upset, and I kept it on really loud. So even at night, an email would come through, and obviously it would come through in the wee hours because of the time difference. Or actually at the beginning of my career, it was landlines, and directors would have to call you with notes over your home phone. And my dad would pick up. So instead of boyfriends, I had directors calling me. And my mom always says that I'm always sort of floating in the ether, but probably in a slightly more grounded way, potentially.
How do you? Okay, I mean, this is maybe a strange question, but how do you reconcile that with the visceral nature of acting, or is that just like it doesn't affect it at all? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm off in my head, and a lot of the time, mm-hmm. It's a struggle to be present, mm-hmm. and really like listening and talking to mm-hmm. Any other person.
Yeah.
And so I tend to think those things are very antithetical. Yeah. And it's very, very difficult for me. How do you reconcile it?
I think actually, like, I remember someone asking me like for the best advice you can give someone starting acting, and I think I said to listen. So I think even in the scene, you should constantly be listening. Forget all the other noises, forget the airplane, forget the camera that's just fell on its side. Just be listening to the other words being said to you. Listen to the notes, just listen. And on set, that's what I do. There is like all feelers are up, standing to attention, ready for information. So I think I'm slightly different in real life versus job life.
So you can, because I also think you mentioned before too, like on set when you were younger, and you said I think you said that it's continued. You know, you snapped into a different mode.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable? I mean,
I don't feel bifurcated. I'm not like two people in one.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like, how do you? Because to me, like, I do snap into different modes. I do feel like a bifurcated human being.
Interesting.
I do. It's been a struggle to be able to kind of be a whole person.
Yeah.
Like in one mode, very intellectual mode, very fact based mode, which is a very different mode than like being a comedian. You can't.
Sure.
You have to like be able to like drop the facts to make a joke.
Yes.
And my wife, who is a incredible stand-up, has scolded me. In quotes,
really?
Before, she's like, just forget about the facts. Like, especially if we're on stage together, she's like, forget the fact of it. Just make the joke.
I know nothing about like being a comedian, so that's fascinating to me.
It's a different mode of being. This is the thing that I'm curious about is these modes of being that we flow, like the difficulty that I have in flowing from one mode to another, you don't seem to have. And I'm curious if it's just a quirk of your existence. Well,
how about this? I think I am. Let's say I don't believe I'm bifurcated, right? But like, if there was a duality to it and to me, I am way more functional as the artist, as the actor, than I am the girl. Like so much. I work so much better. I am driven. I don't. I procrastinate, like, and yet then like you turn into the girl, and I'm like, I can't decide what to wear ever. I will like it. I still can't parallel park. Like there's all these flaws in my life that I think I just sort of like I leave muted, so I can dip into the better version way easier.
Do you think it is, like I said before, like my old writing partner who's like, when I'm on stage, I know the rules. Do you think there's some measure of that to that?
Yeah, that's a really great way of saying it.
Where you're like, well, when I'm in this mode that you've been in since you were 6.
Like all I know, the first memory I ever have is me on a film set. Like,
really?
Yeah, first memory.
So it's almost like it's almost like that's you're not bifurcated because that is kind of like baked into your personality from the beginning.
Yeah, it's like more me than the other thing.
There is no other thing.
I guess there's no other thing.
It's not like a lot of people when I talk to them on the show, like and me as well, we tried on different personalities when we were younger and and like, oh, do I like ska? Right. Oh, I don't like ska, but I'm going to dress up in a suit and go dance at a ska show for a year and see if that personality works, if that persona fits me.
Things. Totally.
But it seems like you were like that from your first memory. Does that give you a kind of confidence in your life? Like a kind of self-knowledge that I think a lot of other people may not have.
I don't know. Because that means then, if we were to psychoanalyze this, that means I'm so malleable that maybe nothing is so potent that it sticks.
Oh, interesting. Because I was going to go in the other direction and saying, I'm
so sturdy.
Yeah, in a certain
I'm gonna go with that one.
You have a self knowledge and a knowledge of like who you are that goes back to such a young age in a way that other people may have had to really cast about and be like, oh, is this me? Is this me? Is this me?
Right.
Whereas you and I think. From the outside, that gives someone a kind of confidence.
I guess, yeah. Although I think it's a hard thing to look in a mirror and call yourself confident, actually. Sure. I think it's almost something a third party has to bestow upon you.
Oh, yeah, sure. If you, you're not walking in here and, you didn't, walk in and, throw your coat on the ground.
I didn't. I kept it on because I'm so cold.
Oh, so if you had been warm enough, you would have thrown it on the ground and been like, I would have
done a Meryl Streep and Deborah's Prada and just thrown it into a corner with a handbag.
Well, we're at the end. I feel like we've I mean, a lot of it's armchair psychology.
Which I really enjoyed, actually, which surprised me that we'd be armchairing it today.
I mean, how do you feel about it?
How does it make you feel?
I mean, there's kind of like I am curious sometimes about. I mean, you've hit both kinds of things that I'm very curious about, which are doing whatever your existential choices from an early age, making that existential, not just like, because there's definitely, I've talked to some actors who acted as children. And then at some point when they could make the choice, they were like, oh, I don't actually like this. And then went off in another direction. My sister
did that. My sister started acting with me like early. And she literally decided at around 15, she's like, I don't like this. This does not make me happy. And then I was the other thing, which was like, this is the only thing that makes me happy.
What did she end up doing then?
She works in a doctor's office now. She's honestly like she's like a jack of all trades. She can literally do anything, talk to anyone. And I say this because I hope one day she listens, but she is like the most moral person I've ever met in my life. So there's many times where I pick up a phone, I'm like, Emma, what would you do in this situation? And that's what I'll end up doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me as well.
Yeah.
The idea that I am absolutely frightened. I think besides death, probably the other giant fear in my life is what happens if, there's nothing that says that this is what my life is going to be for this thing that I like am passionate about could go away.
Yeah, everything can go away.
Yeah, that's absolutely frightening to me.
Yeah, I've just cleared you of all worry because it can all go away.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
I've literally saved you from don't even panic about it anymore. There's fires like 5.9 miles from us.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It's terrifying, but everything can go up in smoke, and you can't think that way.
Yeah, how do you not think that way?
Because it's just things can be convoluted and things can be impermanent, and you just have to remember that today's all good. Okay,
this is the last question then. How, like, have you always been okay with the ephemeral, like from an early age?
That's a good question for my family. I don't know that answer. I believe yes.
Like, I had toy. I still have in my like a basket over there a toy that I had since I was 6 months old. And
that's beautiful.
I once dropped in the sewer, and my mom like took a ladle and tied it to a yardstick and was able to fish it out of the sewer and then boiled it. Did you
see it? Something about? Did you see that movie?
I mean, yes, later in my life.
Okay, that scene seems like something where then the clown comes out of the.
Oh God, maybe that's why that is the kid getting his arm ripped off is so terrifying to me.
So terrifying.
There's like a handful.
There's a ladle in there too. I understand, and it is. I think if there's a thing with actors that we're all a little nomadic. And I think actually that's a completely common trait with every single one of them, and you become. Yeah, everything comes a little impermanent, I guess, and you hold on to less because you have to move more. Again,
maybe look, not to like tie everything in a bow, but I wonder how much of seeing the visceral nature of life from an early age in your father's shop.
Oh my God! I can't believe we're bringing it back to the cattle. Like
such a stretch, a complete stretch. But there might. I wonder if there's like a molecule somewhere in your brain.
Like there's something edible here going on.
Just something where you're like, oh, I saw life and death. I had in front of me all the.
See the life and.
Well, you didn't see like.
I didn't see mass slaughter.
Sure, but you were there when the ham was being sliced.
I did.
In a way, I was just seeing printer paper be
the fragility
torn.
of life. Is that a word?
Sure. Look, this got very high mind. I want everyone to know this is all in like quotes, italics.
We're so hyperbolic, it hurts.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
What a delight. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.